Year of high school, I had two different friends. Both had something in common. They wanted to go into the military. Now, my first friend, Michael, he was extremely scrawny, really small guy. He weighed 120 pounds soaking wet. Now, he wanted to go into the Marines. Now, when he told us he felt the need to go into the Marines, we were all kind of shocked. Because it would kind of be like if Spencer Wilson said he wanted to go into the Marines. It's just not something you would really be ready for. He's a small guy, I love him to death, but he's just not really the typical guy that would go there. So we were just kind of all shocked. My dad actually strongly tried to talk him out of it because we just knew that as soon as everything was over, he was probably going to be on the first of the lines, and that really made us scared. He was a close friend of the family, but after he showed how much he really wanted to do this, we gave him his blessing. Now, that following summer, the night before he left, all the friends of us, we got together and we threw a big party for him. We just kind of all hung out, and I specifically made sure I was the last to leave. Because there's an aspect that I didn't tell you about Michael. You see, Michael was an atheist. I was scared to death that my friend was going to go into the military and not know the faith that I saw. Because Michael and I never really talked about religion. Every now and then I'd ask him to church or I'd ask him something, but he knew that I was, I tried to be a devout atheist, and I tried to be a devout Christian, and he tried to be a devout atheist. And so because of that, we never really wanted to push each other's buttons. But I was going to make sure that tonight I said something. So as we were leaving, I started asking him about Christianity. I started talking to him about him. I wanted to pray with him and really just show him what I was talking about and show him that I knew I was right in my faith and that I knew that my faith is correct. And we ended up getting in this huge argument. He was just trying not to let me push it on him, but the more he resisted, the more I pushed it on him. And we got to a huge argument and a huge fight. And we ended up having to leave. And I felt so bad because I ended up doing more harm than good, and I was just so scared for my friend. The next morning, he was supposed to leave at 8 and head to the airport. So at about 7:30, I woke up and called him, just praying that he would answer. And he answered, and I apologized to him. I said, Michael, I'm so sorry that all that happened. I'm just scared. I love you, man, and I just really want what's best for you. And he understood. He accepted my apology, and there that went. Now, a month later, my other friend left for the military. His name was Luke, and he was going into the Army. He was also a close friend of the family. And the night before, just like we did with Michael, we had a big going-away party for him. We had him at my house. He loves my dad's barbecue, so we made him a big old mess of barbecue, and we just really had a good Texas send-off for him. It was fantastic. And that night before he left, him and Michael had something in common. They were both atheists. And my dad went to Luke. But my dad approached it in a way that I didn't. He went to him and he said, Luke, if you do not want this, I understand, but before you leave, I would just like to say a prayer over you. Luke's mom was also there, and she's also an atheist, and they both said okay. And my dad had a sweet, simple prayer that just said, Lord, be with Luke, guide him, protect him, and bring him home. That was all the prayer was to it. At the end of the prayer, you could see kind of the emotion that built up in Luke's mom's eyes, and we hugged one another, and they left. Now, there's a distinct difference between how I reacted to a situation, how my dad reacted to a situation, because they were the same exact situation. And I believe it's that difference that is how we're reacting with one another. Because you see, we are losing our sense of community with everyone within the church. And it's because I believe we're acting out of fear. And it's because we're reacting irrationally. We're constantly in argument with one another. See, what I did with Mike was I was trying to push my views on him. I was trying to push my opinions and my theology on him. And he was resisting. And the more he resisted, the more I pushed on him. And that's what we tend to do with one another, especially the ones we love the most. That's what we do with people within the church. We tend to push one another and shove one another. And no matter how much they fight with our theology, we try to prove them wrong and show that our theology is correct. our thinking is correct. And that's something that we need to be cautious of. We need to learn. We are losing the gospel. We no longer speak the gospel. You see, the gospel is beautiful. The gospel is love. Pure, holy love. But we no longer speak that gospel. We now speak a gospel of having to be right. Every time we speak to one another, every time we show one another our opinions, we have to be right. And we will do everything to show that we're right. And it's almost embarrassing how much the church is starting to rip apart from one another, and how much we're starting to just not be unified any longer because we continue to argue and we continue to speak to one another in a tone that is not acceptable. We're always having to prove that we're correct. And it would be one thing if you're arguing with someone that doesn't have the same belief, but the fact of the matter is we're on each other's team. We're all in this together, and we can't even live with one another in love because we're so constant in having to push what we believe on one another. My freshman year, I had a group of friends that I went to. We went into the city of Dallas, and it was me and 3 other guys, and they brought this one girl that I kind of knew but didn't really know. We were just kind of acquaintances. The 3 guys, we were all in church together, and on the way home, I ended up losing shotgun, so I had to sit in the back with this chick that I didn't even know. So I'm sitting on the driver's side window, and somehow we started talking about religion. I'm not sure how, but we just started talking about religion. She said she was a Christian, and she started giving me her views of Christianity. And before I knew it, she was talking like how she believed some parts of the Bible, but didn't believe other parts, and how there was a God, but there wasn't a heaven and hell. And before I knew it, I'm just sitting on the door just thinking, this chick has lost her mind. She has no idea what she's talking about. And I was just about to really let her know how the cow eats the cud and what the Bible really has to say on this situation. Because I was just fed up after a while. I'm just like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. And some people have problems when you get the little things wrong with the Bible. For me, it's like when you just get the whole complete message messed up, it just really starts to just irritate me a lot. And so I was really just about to have a really solid argument against her. And I was so irritated that I couldn't speak and I couldn't move. I couldn't get off this door. And before I knew it, I just realized that the Lord just kind of came over me and gave me peace, and I realized that I can't argue with this girl. Because the more I argue with her, the more she's going to want to push her theology, and I'm going to want to push my theology, and that's not going to help this situation. So I decided to do something that was really a little outside of my bubble, and I just kind of received what she had to say, and I was like, okay, well, this is what I believe, this is why I believe it, and I tried to do it in the most unconflict way that I knew possible. I tried to not have any argument to my tone. I was trying very hard to do it, and it went over much better. And this leads me to a point that I really want everyone to understand. This is what, if you get anything out of my message, I want you to get this. No one was ever converted to Christianity because they lost the argument. It's simple and it's sweet. And it really puts my point that I want you to understand that no one, no matter how good of an arguer you are, how good you just can be at times, no one is ever going to convert to Christianity because they lost the argument to you. So why do we continue to argue with one another? Why can't we live in love? Why can't we understand that times are getting hard? They're getting more and more frustrating, and it's because we're not reacting in love anymore. We're reacting out of fear. We're trying to scare people into the church. We're trying to guilt people into the church, or just thrust the church on them. We're trying to thrust ourselves on them, and we're losing the love aspect, the pure gospel that was given to us. I don't know if we just feel the gospel's getting weak, the story's getting old and repetitive, and we just need to spice it up a little bit. But we continue to do this. I continue to do it. I find myself in argument a lot, especially over theology. But why? Why can't we just learn to love, to give one another, to come together as this community? Because if we can't live in this community with one another, how are we supposed to live as people that don't think anything like we do? We have to have one another. We are the church. No building. No building is the church. Now we have this construct view as we're going to church. I'm going to go to church. We are the church. We've lost this aspect of community. We no longer have this aspect of love. We're supposed to be there for one another, to love one another. In Galatians chapter 6, I love chapter 6, the beginning of it. It's beautiful. I think about it all the time. It reads, "Brothers, if someone is caught in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual should restore such a person with gentle spirit, watching out for yourselves so that you won't be tempted also. Carry one another's burdens. And in this way you fulfill the law of Christ." It doesn't say argue. It doesn't say try to prove your point to someone else. It says carry that person. Carry their burdens. Love one another. Care for one another. That's what we need to do. That's what I've been struggling with for so long, is I've realized that every time I try to help one another, I'm just trying to prove my point. I'm not actually loving them and holding them. And that's what we're called to do. And I love this because at the end of the verse, it says this fulfills the law of Christ. No other point in the Bible do we get such a beautiful phrase at the end of a verse that this fulfills the law of Christ. This sums it up. This makes it complete, to just love one another and help one another. Be the community that we've chosen to be. We are the church. God forbid any one of the church buildings in Edmonds burns down tonight. That would be awful. But if one was to, the church would still be standing stronger than ever tomorrow. Amen? Amen. Because we are the church and we will stand strong. No enemy formed against us shall prosper. We cannot lose our sense of community. We have to hold on to one another. Carry one another's burdens. Now, like every good speaker is supposed to, you have to have a charge, or give people something to do at the end of this. So my charge is short and sweet. It's to love one another. It's simple. Try to go this week without arguing with one another, whether it's political, theological, brand of shoes, color of glasses, whatever it is. Be open-minded, because we are each other's family. We're here for one another. We're supposed to love one another and hold one another. So go out and love. Try not to argue. Try not to hold people against their own will when you're telling them your theology point and got them backed up into the corner. Love. You're all beautiful, and I love you so much. I'm sure that we've argued before, and if we haven't, sorry. I love all of y'all, and you're beautiful people. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.